The reflection that stared back at Vexra from the cracked mirror wasn't one her people would recognize as beautiful. The jagged scar that split her violet face from brow to jaw had healed poorly, puckering the normally smooth skin of her species. Her left eye, once a brilliant gold like all Thraxi, now clouded to a milky amber, barely functional after the plasma blast that should have killed her. 3 years since the Galactic Accord, and the mirror hadn't gotten any kinder. On Thraxos, physical perfection was revered above all else. Warriors were expected to fight with grace, to emerge victorious without blemish. Those who returned damage were considered flawed vessels, their scars external proof of internal weakness. Vexra hadn't just failed by being wounded, she'd failed by surviving it. Monster, a child's voice whispered as Vexra passed through the lower markets of Nexus Station. The word no longer stung as it once had. The mother pulled her offspring closer, eyes averted. Vexra kept moving, her tall, lean frame cutting through the crowd that parted instinctively before her. Nexus Station, a rusting sanctuary for those with nowhere else to go after the war. Humans, Thraxi, Keltorians, Vespians, former enemies forced to coexist in this neutral territory. Peace was theoretical here. Violence still simmered beneath the surface. Vexra's quarters in Sector 7 were little more than a storage alcove, she claimed, nestled between abandoned cargo containers. It offered privacy, the only luxury she valued now. Her warrior's pension provided enough for survival, nothing more. Her people had made it clear. She was welcome to return to Thraxos only when she could afford the reconstructive procedures that would erase her dishonor. She was heading back to her quarters when she heard it, the unmistakable sound of a beating. Following the noise to a service corridor, she found 3 station thugs surrounding a young Keltorian veteran. His trembling mandibles and missing limb marked him as another war casualty. Station scum, one attacker spat, landing another kick. Your kind slaughtered my brother on Deneb Prime. Vexra didn't make a conscious decision. Her body moved from muscle memory, war reflexes taking over. She launched forward, her damaged eye compensated for by years of battlefield adaptations. 2 attackers went down before they registered her presence. The third pulled a vibroblade. The scared Thraxi bitch, he snarled, recognition flashing. Heard you like to play hero. The fight was brief and brutal. Vexra disarmed him efficiently, but not before the blade sliced deep across her shoulder. She barely felt it. Pain had become a distant acquaintance. Go, she told the Keltorian, who scrambled away without thanks. She didn't expect gratitude. This wasn't kindness. It was the reflex of a soldier who'd seen enough death. Blood, deep indigo against her lavender skin, soaked through her worn military jacket as she stumbled back toward Sector 7. The wound needed treatment, but Thraxi healers wouldn't touch her, and she couldn't afford human medics. As her vision blurred, her legs buckled beneath her. The last thing Vexra registered was being lifted by unfamiliar hands and a calm voice saying, I've got you, soldier. She wanted to protest, to fight, but darkness claimed her first. In unconsciousness, her face relaxed, revealing what few ever noticed. Beneath the scars and hardened exterior was someone who had once known how to smile. Vexra awoke to the unfamiliar sensation of softness beneath her and the sterile scent of antiseptic. Her good eye snapped open, body tensing for combat before pain lanced through her shoulder, forcing a hiss from between her clenched teeth. I wouldn't move too quickly if I were you, a steady male voice advised. That vibroblade went deeper than it looked. A human approached, tall for his species with dark hair streaked prematurely with silver at the temples. His eyes were an unusual shade of amber that reminded Vexra of Thraxi sunsets. The medical insignia on his worn uniform identified him as a doctor, though not military affiliated. Where am I? Her voice emerged as a rasp. Free Veterans Clinic, Sector 4, he replied, checking the biomonitor above her bed. I'm Dr. Jackson Reed. Some dock workers brought you in after you collapsed. I don't need charity. Vexra attempted to rise again, ignoring the pain. It's not charity. Jackson replied with unexpected firmness. It's what's owed. You fought in the Meridian Campaign, correct? 7th Thraxi Battalion. Vexra stilled, her good eye narrowing. How did you know? The scar pattern. I was a field medic with the Allied forces, saw similar injuries on the front. He gestured to her face without pity or revulsion, just professional assessment. Plasma cannon, close range. You're lucky to be alive. Vexra gave a bitter laugh. Lucky is not what my people call it. Jackson prepared a regenerative injection for her shoulder wound, his movements precise and practiced. I've heard about Thraxi cultural attitudes toward battle scars. Seems counterintuitive for a warrior society. We are expected to win perfectly or die gloriously, Vexra said flatly. I did neither. Jackson administered the injection with gentle hands that betrayed years of working with traumatized patients. From a medical perspective, surviving that kind of blast speaks to extraordinary resilience, physically and mentally. When he touched her wounded shoulder, Vexra flinched, not from pain, but from the simple shock of being touched without hesitation. How long had it been since anyone had willingly made contact with her scared body? Your eye, Jackson said, studying the clouded iris. Have you had anyone look at it since initial treatment? My people's healers refused, said I should save credits for full reconstruction or accept my fate. Something flickered across Jackson's face. Anger, quickly controlled. May I examine it? I specialized in cross-species trauma during the war. I might be able to improve functionality, if not appearance. Why would you bother? Suspicion edged her voice. Jackson met her gaze directly. Because I took an oath to heal. Because you protected someone weaker today at personal cost. And because I've seen too many veterans discarded after giving everything. He didn't flinch when she turned her full face toward him, the scared side that most beings avoided looking at directly. Instead, he studied it with the same calm interest he might give any medical challenge. You're not repulsed, Vexra stated, bewildered. By what? Evidence that you survived something that should have killed you. A half-smile softened his features. That's not repulsive. That's remarkable. The words landed like physical blows against the armor she'd built around herself. Vexra looked away first, unfamiliar emotions threatening her carefully maintained control. Rest, Jackson instructed, dimming the lights. We'll talk more when the regeneratives have done their work. As he turned to leave, Vexra spoke. The Keltorian, the one being attacked. Did he escape? Jackson paused at the doorway. He did. Even came by to check on you. Seemed surprised anyone would intervene. We were enemies during the war. And now you're both just trying to survive the peace. Jackson's expression held something Vexra couldn't identify. Sometimes that's harder than surviving the war. Later, alone in the quiet of the medical bay, Vexra raised trembling fingers to touch her scared cheek. For the first time in 3 years, she considered the possibility that what marked her might not define her, at least in the eyes of one unusual human doctor. Part 3. Breaking Barriers. Over the following weeks, Vexra found herself returning to the clinic, first as a patient, then as something else entirely. What began as Jackson's treatments for her eye evolved into her helping organize supplies, then assisting with Keltorian and Thraxi patients who mistrusted humans but would accept her help. You have natural medical instincts, Jackson observed one evening as they cataloged donated medications. The clinic operated on the margins of station regulations, serving those the official medical facilities often turned away. On Thraxos, warriors learned basic battlefield medicine, Vexra explained, sorting medications by species compatibility. We're expected to save ourselves rather than burden others. Efficient, if somewhat lacking in compassion. Jackson noted, the corner of his mouth lifting in what she'd come to recognize as his almost smile. Vexra shrugged. Compassion is a luxury of peaceful species. Is that why you stopped to help that Keltorian when no one else would? His question carried no judgment, only curiosity. The question lingered between them, unanswered, as the clinic door slid open. A human woman entered, her child clutching her hand. The boy couldn't have been more than 6 standard years. His eyes widened at the sight of Vexra, her scared face thrown into harsh relief under the clinic's lights. "We can wait," the mother said stiffly, pulling her child back toward the door. Jackson stepped forward. "There's no need. Vexra is my assistant. I don't want that thing near my son." The woman's voice dropped to a whisper, as though Vexra's alien hearing wouldn't detect it. Before Jackson could respond, Vexra moved toward the storage room. "I'll inventory the back supplies." Later, after the woman and child had gone, Jackson found Vexra organizing surgical implements with military precision. "You shouldn't have had to leave," he said, anger evident in his usually calm voice. "It doesn't matter." "It does to me." His hand rested beside hers on the metal counter, not quite touching, but close enough that she could feel its warmth. "Her ignorance isn't your burden to carry." Vexra looked at their hands, hers lavender with indigo markings, his a warm brown. Different, yet both equally capable of destruction and healing. "My people believe scars reveal character flaws," she said quietly. "What does your species believe?" "Some humans think scars tell stories." His fingers moved imperceptibly closer to hers. "Others see them as symbols of what we've survived." "And you, Jackson Reed, what do you see?" His eyes met hers, unwavering. "I see someone who sacrificed more than most could bear, who continues to stand despite a universe trying to push her down." The proximity between them charged the air with something Vexra had no name for. In that moment, alarms blared throughout the station, the distinctive pattern signaling a containment breach in a nearby sector. They moved with instinctive coordination, gathering emergency supplies. Within minutes, injured beings of various species poured into the clinic, victims of a ruptured coolant line. Jackson immediately triaged the worst cases, while Vexra handled those with chemical burns. Hours passed in controlled chaos. When a group of injured Thraxi warriors arrived, they initially refused Vexra's help, spitting insults about her disfigurement. Jackson moved to intervene, but Vexra stopped him with a look. "Your pride will not serve you here," she told them in their native tongue. "Accept help or suffer. The choice is simple." One by one, they relented, allowing her to treat their wounds. The oldest warrior, his uniform marking him as a commander, watched her work with narrowed eyes. "You dishonor yourself by dwelling among lesser species," he finally said. Vexra finished bandaging his companion's arm before answering. "I've found more honor in this lesser clinic than in our people's grand healing temples." By dawn, when the crisis had finally passed, Vexra found Jackson slumped against a wall, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. Without thinking, she sat beside him, their shoulders touching, a barrier broken. "We make a good team," he murmured, eyes closed. "Yes," Vexra admitted, surprising herself with the realization. "We do." His hand found hers in the quiet aftermath, fingers intertwining, human and Thraxi, both bearing invisible scars, both finding unexpected connection in the space between stars. "Hold still," Jackson instructed, adjusting the optic enhancer over Vexra's damaged eye. The small device hummed softly as it calibrated. "This won't restore full sight, but should improve peripheral vision by roughly 30%. They were alone in the clinic after hours. The lights dimmed except for the focused beam Jackson used for the delicate procedure. 2 months had passed since Vexra had first awakened in this same room, distrustful and defensive. "There," Jackson said, satisfaction evident in his voice as he removed the calibration tools. "Try it now." Vexra blinked, adjusting to the strange sensation. The cloudy darkness that had haunted her left field of vision for years suddenly brightened into distinguishable shapes and shadows. Not perfect, but a dramatic improvement. "I can see the cabinet," she said, pointing to what had previously been a blind spot. "And your collection of antiquated medical texts." Jackson smiled, a full, unguarded expression that transformed his usually serious face. A successful triumph. Then, he was standing close enough that Vexra could count the flecks of gold in his amber eyes, could detect the subtle changes in his scent when he was pleased. "Thank you," she said, the words still unfamiliar on her tongue. Gratitude wasn't part of Thraxi warrior culture, where assistance was considered either duty or weakness. "You've more than earned it with your work here," he replied, his hand rising unconsciously toward her face before hesitating. Vexra didn't flinch away as she once might have. Instead, she made the decision that had been building between them for weeks. She caught his hand and deliberately placed it against her scared cheek. Jackson's breath caught as his fingers made contact with the ridged tissue. His touch was gentle as he traced the path of the old wound from brow to jaw, not with clinical detachment but with something far more dangerous: tenderness. "Does it still pain you?" he asked, voice low. "Not physically." Her good eye closed briefly at the sensation of being touched without revulsion. "There are other kinds of pain." "I know." And she believed he did. This human who had witnessed the worst of the war, who carried his own invisible battle scars. When their lips met, it wasn't with the hesitation of different species, but with the recognition of kindred spirits. His mouth was warmer than a Thraxi's would be, the sensation novel but not unpleasant. Vexra had never expected to experience intimacy again, had resigned herself to isolation after her disfigurement. They broke apart, Jackson's pupils dilated, his breathing uneven. "I've wanted to do that for weeks," he admitted. "Why didn't you?" "I wasn't sure if Thraxi customs. My customs rejected me long ago," she interrupted. "I am no longer bound by them." His quarters behind the clinic were sparse but comfortable, more home than her storage alcove had ever been. As clothing was shed, Vexra revealed more scars, each telling its own story of survival. Where once she would have hidden them in shame, now she allowed Jackson to see all of her, illuminated by the station's artificial starlight filtering through viewport blinds. "Beautiful," he murmured, tracing a plasma burn across her shoulder blade. "You use that word incorrectly," Vexra said, though without her usual bitterness. "I use it precisely." His palms mapped the terrain of her body with reverence. "Where I'm from on Earth, there's an ancient art form called kintsugi, broken pottery mended with gold. The repairs aren't hidden. They're highlighted, celebrated as part of its history. Their bodies move together, discovering differences and similarities. Human skin flushed with heat. Thraxi phosphorescence activated with arousal, making Vexra's undamaged skin glow faintly in the darkness. Where words failed across cultural divides, touch bridged understanding. Afterward, lying in comfortable silence, Jackson traced patterns between the scars on her back, as though connecting constellations. "What happens now?" Vexra asked, unaccustomed to navigating anything beyond battlefield strategy or survival. "Whatever we choose," Jackson replied. "That's what everyone fought for, isn't it? The freedom to choose." Vexra considered this. On Thraxos, life paths were predetermined. Warriors remained warriors until death or dishonor. The concept of choosing a different future was alien as Jackson himself. "My people would consider this relationship another disgrace," she said, testing the word relationship cautiously. Jackson propped himself up on one elbow, his expression serious. "And what do you consider it?" Vexra looked at him. This human who saw strength where others saw monstrosity, who touched her scars with appreciation rather than disgust. "Liberation," she finally answered. His smile in response felt like witnessing a star being born, a new point of light in what had been endless darkness. The message arrived 6 standard months after Vexra had first stumbled into Jackson's clinic. By then, she had moved her few possessions into his quarters, established herself as the clinic's specialist for non-human patients, and grown accustomed to the curious or disapproving glances from station residents when she and Jackson walked together through the promenade. "From Thraxos," she told Jackson, holding the official communique with uncharacteristic uncertainty. "The Military Restoration Committee." Jackson set down the diagnostic tool he'd been calibrating. Are you going to open it? Vexra's fingers tightened around the digital tablet. They only contact the dishonored for one reason: to offer restoration terms. Understanding dawned in Jackson's eyes. Restoration on Thraxos meant cosmetic reconstruction, the erasure of battle damage, and with it, the possibility of returning to her homeworld, her former rank, her place in society. "What will you do?" he asked, voice carefully neutral, though Vexra had learned to detect the subtle tension in his posture. Before she could answer, the clinic door slid open. A delegation of Thraxi warriors entered, 5 in total, led by Commander Therax, the same officer she'd treated during the station emergency months earlier. "Warrior Vexra," he greeted formally, ignoring Jackson completely. "We've come to escort you home." "I received no travel authorization," Vexra replied, instinctively shifting into a defensive stance. "The committee has reviewed your case." Therax's gaze lingered on her scared face, now partially improved by Jackson's ocular enhancement. "Your actions during the station crisis demonstrated continued warrior spirit. They've authorized full restoration procedures." Jackson stepped forward. "Vexra has established a life here. She's respected, needed." Therax finally acknowledged him with a dismissive glance. "Human, this is not your concern. Restoration is the highest honor that can be bestowed upon the disfigured." "And if I decline?" Vexra asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. The commander's expression hardened. "Then you confirm what many already believe, that your mind was damaged along with your body. No true Thraxi would choose exile among aliens over restoration and honor." "I served our people faithfully," Vexra countered. "I nearly died wearing Thraxi colors. Yet when I survived, imperfectly, I was discarded. The committee acknowledges errors were made." Therax conceded with obvious reluctance, "which is why they offer redemption now." Vexra looked between the warriors and Jackson, between her past and what might be her future. The choice seemed impossible: return to the world that had shaped her, where physical perfection would be restored at the cost of denying what she had become, or remain in exile, forever marked, but somehow more whole than she'd ever been. "Your shuttle departs in 3 hours," Therax stated, leaving the tablet with the official reinstatement on the clinic counter. "Make your choice, warrior." After they departed, silence filled the clinic. Vexra moved to the small mirror Jackson had installed near her workstation, not for vanity, but to help patients see their healing progress. Her reflection showed the truth of who she was now: the scars that would never fully fade, the enhanced eye that glowed faintly with Jackson's technology, the proud posture of a warrior who had learned to be something more. "What do you see?" Jackson asked softly, coming to stand behind her. "For years, I saw only failure," Vexra answered. "A warrior who should have died gloriously, but instead lived shamefully." His hand found hers, fingers intertwining in what had become their private ritual of connection. "And now I see." She paused, searching for words. "A different kind of victory. Not over enemies, but over shame itself." When the shuttle departure time came and passed, Commander Therax returned alone, finding them treating patients side by side. "You dishonor your heritage," he told Vexra coldly. "No," she replied. "I honor something greater, the freedom we all fought for, the right to choose who and what we become after war has taken its toll." Therax's expression shifted subtly. "You truly believe this? Clinic, this human, are worth rejecting restoration? Look around you, Commander." Vexra gestured to the diverse patients waiting for care. "Former enemies, healing together. If that isn't restoration of what matters most, I don't know what is." After a long moment, Therax gave her the formal Thraxi warrior's salute, a gesture of respect she had not received since before her injury. "Your choice is noted," he said. "I will inform the committee that Warrior Vexra died with honor during the war. The scared healer of Nexus Station is someone else entirely." With that final acknowledgement, part respect, part farewell, he left. That night, In the privacy of their quarters, Vexra allowed herself to grieve briefly for the life she had officially relinquished, the homeworld she would likely never see again. "Regrets?" Jackson asked, holding her close. "No," she answered truthfully, "but endings, even necessary ones, deserve to be marked." His fingers traced the now familiar path of her scars in the darkness. "Not an ending," he corrected gently, "a continuation." Vexra turned to face him, her enhanced eye allowing her to see his features even in the dim light. In Thraxi astronomy, when dying stars collapse, they sometimes form new patterns, constellations different from what existed before. "Like us," Jackson said, understanding immediately. "Like us," she agreed, pressing her forehead to his in the Thraxi gesture of profound connection. New constellations, formed from what remains after destruction. Outside their viewport, Nexus Station continued its slow rotation among the stars, a sanctuary for the